This boy is envied by all males for living with the 5 most beautiful girls in the world. Only the boy himself knows how miserable his life truly is. The boy's name is Arata. He's never had a girlfriend his entire life, all because of his 2 older sisters and 3 younger sisters. His youngest sister Kotono can't reach her own back when bathing, so she always asks Arata to scrub it for her. From morning till night, Arata constantly sees these beautiful girls around him. As a result, his standards for romance have become impossibly high, and he becomes reluctant to pursue any real relationship. In addition, because Arata is a boy, he has to compromise every time he quarrels with his sisters. One day, Arata is chatting with his brother Shion, and he asks Shion for advice on how to get a girlfriend. At this moment, the 5 sisters appear together. The eldest sister Banri has a humorous personality and often teases her younger siblings. The second sister Seiha thinks logically like a programmer. The third sister Oka suspects Arata of being perverted and corrupting Shion, always ordering her pet dog to punish him. The fourth sister Minami loves sports but frequently accidentally hurts Arata. The youngest Kotono is extremely shy and rarely speaks. Arata tries hard to avoid his sisters, spending most of his time with Shion instead, but Oka never gives him the chance. Oka and Arata are fraternal twins, so they are both in their sophomore year of high school now. Oka often comes to Arata to borrow notes, and she actively helps Arata find a girlfriend in order to prevent Arata from having perverted thoughts about her sisters. During the chat, Oka learns that his friend Yokoyama is Arata's crush, and Oka plans to invite Yokoyama to hang out on the weekend. Arata asks her to mind her own business, and the two of them start to quarrel. At this moment, Kotono is peeking at Arata's picture, with her cheeks turning red. The day of Kotono's birthday arrives. Everyone dresses in formal attire, but the relaxed atmosphere soon shatters with the sound of an argument. Minami has lost Oka's Apple earphones. Oka becomes furious and declares she doesn't want a sister like Minami. Arata reminds them that they are all relatives and should not say such hurtful words to each other. Although they don't care much about Arata usually, his sisters still think of him as an older brother when he's serious. That's when Kanami, the father of these children, comes in. Next, Kanami announces a big news. The 7 children of this family are all adopted by him. Only Minami and Shion are fraternal twins here. The rest share no blood relation. This means the claim about Arata and Oka being twins was also a lie. The kids fall into heavy silence, with their faces unreadable. It takes Arata hours to process the shock. After he thinks about it for a long time, he finally believes what their foster father said, as their hair colors are completely different. They couldn't possibly all be related. The evening hangs heavy after Kanami leaves, and the 7 kids hold a family meeting. Banri, adopted around age 4, has hazy memories of something special but keeps quiet without knowing why. Hours pass with them sitting in thick silence, all stewing in mixed feelings. At this moment, Oka is asking Shion about something that happened in the past. At that time, they accidentally saw Arata on top of Kotono. No matter how they questioned him, Arata refused to explain. Shion is one of the few people who knows the truth, and he helps Arata clear up the misunderstanding. In fact, that day, Kotono confessed to her brother Arata, and she was very emotional at the time. When Arata tried calming her down, they tripped. Arata takes the blame in silence because exposing the truth would have had a bad impact on Kotono. After learning the truth, Oka becomes even more worried. Now that they're not blood related, Kotono is very likely to develop special feelings for Arata again. And sure enough, Kotono does exactly what Oka predicted. Arata tries to calm down by taking a shower, but unexpectedly encounters Kotono, who didn't lock the door. Arata decides to come back later, but Kotono calls out to him, hoping her brother will help wash her back like before. Suddenly, Kotono hugs Arata and confesses once again. Luckily Arata has principles. He tells Kotono teenagers often mix up respect and crushes. As her brother, he'll keep watching over her until the day she becomes a bride. Then, Arata rushes back to his room, only to find Seiha there as well. But something even more terrifying happens. Seiha pushes Arata onto the bed and presses her face against his chest. Arata panics, thinking Seiha likes him like Kotono does, and cold sweat drips down his neck. But it's just a misunderstanding. It turns out Seiha had been heading to the bath earlier and overheard Kotono's conversation with him. Seiha has always been rational. She thinks Kotono has confused her affection for her brother with romantic feelings. To prevent Arata from developing any strange feelings for others, Seiha deliberately initiates a close physical contact to see if there's any flutter in his heart. But thankfully, Arata's heartbeat remains perfectly normal. However, Seiha doesn't let her guard down. She educates Arata about the dangers of marriage between close relatives. Arata feels quite helpless, not to mention that he doesn't have any strange thoughts about his sisters. Even if he did, there's no blood relation between them. After finally getting rid of Seiha, Arata falls into a state of insomnia. Fortunately, by morning, Arata notices that his sisters are acting completely normal. Banri is still joking around. On his way to school, Arata encounters a few of his other sisters, and they also behave just like usual. It seems that Arata is the one most affected by everything. His mind is completely in a mess all day. After school, he runs into Minami. This athletic girl is very popular, and her fans often ask for pictures with her. Arata can't help but feel that he has less charm with girls than his sister does. But soon, Arata regains his confidence. Minami has great athletic talent but is absolutely terrible at math and ends up failing her exam. Arata takes her to a karaoke place to help her study, but Minami completely doesn't understand. After a short while, she starts singing instead. Arata is touched by his sister's optimism and decides not to pressure her to study anymore. As they are leaving, Arata notices that Yokoyama already has a boyfriend. Minami picks up on her brother's unusual behavior and, having heard from Oka that Arata has a crush on Yokoyama, she spends the entire way home trying to comfort him. Encouraged by his sister, Arata starts to feel less depressed. Minami is like the sun, warming her family. She brings cake to Oka and even finds the missing headphones, completely resolving the tension between them. Life seems to have returned to normal, as if they are no longer affected by the news their adoptive father announced. The only exception is Arata and Kotono, who still feel a bit awkward when they're together. Whenever this happens, Seiha would appear like a ghost, reminding Arata not to have any indecent thoughts. Arata, in an attempt to avoid Seiha, goes to school, only to find Oka waiting to give him trouble. She urges Arata to confess his feelings to Yokoyama, but Arata refuses since Yokoyama already has a boyfriend. Just then, Oka is called away by a classmate who seems to have feelings for Arata. Flustered, Oka teasingly calls her brother a perv, and it seems she doesn't really want Arata to leave his single status after all. Soon, the weekend arrives, and Arata and his family head to the water park. Kotono's birthday party had a tense atmosphere, so they have agreed to come to the water park for a makeup celebration. Banri and Arata go to buy snacks, while the others promise to wait at the spot. When Arata returns, however, he finds that none of his family members are there. He tries calling them, but no one answers. Carrying all those snacks, Arata feels exhausted, while Banri has a small appetite, leaving Arata to finish them all by himself. During these moments of being alone, Banri always enjoys teasing her younger brother. With just a few ambiguous words, she can make Arata's face turn red. This is one of Arata's struggles. After all, he's at an age full of hormones, and it's not easy to suppress himself. Arata tries hard to stay calm, but in the end, he still gets distracted and trips. Fortunately, the two then start to experience the water park attractions, and Banri finally stops teasing her brother, focusing instead on the fun activities. After Shion and the others finish their activities, they find themselves unable to get in touch with Arata. They decide to temporarily give up on trying to contact him and instead focus on enjoying all the attractions the water park has to offer. On Arata's side, he finally gets a rare chance to be alone with Banri. He's curious about what his sister thinks regarding the fact that they don't share a blood relationship. For others, it might not have as much of an impact, but Arata has already been affected by Kotono's confession and Seiha's warning. He's troubled, but it's not something he feels comfortable telling Banri. Banri notices that her brother isn't in a good state and shares her thoughts with him. Even though they don't share a blood relation, she promises to protect him and their sisters. Banri gently pats Arata's head, just like she did when they were kids. At that moment, a girl accidentally spills her drink on Banri, and Arata immediately shields her with his body. This time, it's him protecting his sister. Banri feels that Arata has matured, and during the rest of their time at the park, she can't help but take his hand. Later that night, the two groups finally reunite. While the two younger brothers and Kotono are away at the restroom, Seiha takes the opportunity to tell the rest of the group about Kotono's confession and the test she conducted on Arata. Oka hesitates for a moment, but then she reveals Kotono's previous confession to the sisters as well. The situation is now very serious, and it leaves all four girls deeply troubled. Since Kotono learned that she and Arata don't share a blood relationship, the suppressed feelings she has for him have resurfaced. They all agree to pretend they don't know about it for now, while observing Kotono and searching for a way to resolve the situation. Lately, Arata often hides in the bathroom to share his worries with Shion. He feels that without the protection of a blood relationship, he is no different from a beautiful woman walking into a prison full of pervs, and the sisters are trying various ways to win his heart. Shion deliberately teases Arata, saying that if the fact they're not related by blood had been exposed, every boy in the school would be jealous of him. Shion doesn't understand Arata's troubles. Their family relationships are teetering on the edge of collapse. For example, Arata notices that Oka has been looking at him strangely lately, and he hopes it's just his imagination. For over a decade, they were told they were twins, which made their relationship particularly special. Then, Oka suddenly confesses her feelings to Arata, startling him so much that he nearly wets his pants in front of everyone. Oka explains that it's an admiration for him, not the affection that a woman has for a man. She's pleased that Arata didn't take advantage of Kotono when she was confessing her feelings. Hearing this, Arata relaxes a little. What he doesn't know is that Oka is lying. In fact, this little girl actually has feelings for him too. To make matters worse, part of their conversation is overheard by Minami. Among the 5 sisters, she's the best at sports and outgoing, who never holds back what she wants to say. But this time, she hesitates. Minami really wants to know what happened between Oka and Arata, yet the uncertainty torments her. She tries several times to ask Arata about it, but in the end, she never musters the courage. Arata notices that Minami seems a bit off. Even when he goes to take a bath, he keeps thinking about it and doesn't realize that Seiha is in the bathroom, ready to bathe. Arata scolds Seiha for not wearing clothes in the bathroom. Seiha teases him for overreacting. As a top student, she instinctively starts lecturing. In her view, after living together as a family for more than 10 years, they should already be very familiar with each other's bodies, and there shouldn't be any feelings involved. Arata feels helpless and goes back to his room. Just then, the eldest sister, Banri, pays him a visit. It has been 2 years since she last entered Arata's room, and she comes to invite him for a date. The word date is something Banri uses on purpose to tease Arata, as she enjoys playing with him like that. Her real intention is to fulfill her little brother's wish. Arata has long wanted a smartphone. At first, Arata thinks Banri is just taking another prank on him, but what happens next leaves him genuinely confused. While Arata is picking out a phone, Banri suddenly brings up something she once heard. When people are choosing phones, their view on choosing a partner can be reflected. Whether they care more about looks or inner qualities can be seen from whether they prefer a phone's design or its performance. Banri often brings up topics related to romance in a seemingly casual way, and when she hears there's a discount for couples buying phones together, she deliberately initiates physical contact with Arata, trying to pretend they're a couple. Arata, worried their lie would be exposed, refuses Banri's suggestion. After buying the phone, Banri takes Arata to get ice cream, just like on a couple's date. Thankfully, she reins herself in a bit this time and doesn't take their intimate interactions any further. Instead, she and Arata reminisce about the past. When they were kids, they used to argue all the time. Whenever Kotono got upset, she would hide in the closet. Oka acted more like the eldest sister than Banri, always stepping in to uphold justice among them. Despite all the years that have passed, not much has changed. The moment Banri brings up anything spooky, she still gets scared just like when she was a kid. At this moment, Kotono is looking at a group photo from their trip to the water park, and her gaze always lingers on Arata. Suddenly, she sees a newly posted photo from Banri, which is a picture of her with Arata. Kotono already feels upset from jealousy, and what happens next pushes her to the brink of emotional collapse. Today, Banri acts overly intimate toward Arata, all because of Minami. Minami is worried that things will become more chaotic if Oka gets involved too, as the matter between Arata and Kotono hasn't been resolved yet. That's why Minami secretly asks Banri to test Arata's feelings. The outcome turns out to be very satisfying for her. Just then, an accident happens. Minami mistakenly sends the message to the group chat. In it, she mentions that there probably isn't anything going on between Oka and Arata, although she immediately withdraws the message. The problem is, Kotono has already read it. While everyone else is focused on Arata, Arata's attention shifts to Seiha. He notices that his second eldest sister has been zoning out lately, so he tries to comfort her, saying that if she ever runs into a problem, she can come to him for help. Actually, her problem is related to Arata. Last time, in order to protect Kotono, she deliberately tried to seduce Arata to test his reaction. Things went awkward in the end. Arata didn't respond in a perverted way at all. Instead, it was Seiha who felt a bit excited. Seiha can't quite figure out the source of these emotions. To resolve her confusion, she suggests playing a little game with Arata. Arata refuses to go along with her test. That's when Seiha, like most older sisters, starts bringing up old favors, reminding him that she helped him improve his test scores just last month. Arata doesn't want to feel indebted to Seiha, so he reluctantly agrees. The test is essentially a spinning wheel game, where each spin randomly tells them to place a hand or foot in a specific area. The core of the game lies in the limited space available, so as the game progresses, physical contact between Seiha and Arata becomes inevitable. Seiha, usually as quiet as a cat, now acts like a hungry tiger. Arata, on the other hand, is like prey. He does his best to shift his posture and keep his distance from Seiha. At one point, Arata considers giving up, but he's afraid Seiha might misunderstand and think he's starting to have feelings for her. Feeling helpless, he decides to continue the game. As the game goes on, Seiha starts introducing dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, which can make people feel happy. In the early stages of love, the body releases large amounts of dopamine, and during physical intimacy between couples, oxytocin is released. Seiha has never been in a romantic relationship. Everything she knows comes from books and theoretical knowledge. That's why she needs Arata to act as the test subject in her experiment. Fortunately, the entire experiment does not get out of hand. After the test, Seiha confirms that she does not have romantic feelings for Arata. Like a playboy, Seiha leaves without hesitation and becomes indifferent the moment Arata loses his value. Unexpectedly, just after Seiha leaves, Oka arrives at Arata's room. She invites him to play a fighting video game. They usually only play this kind of game on holidays, so Oka's unusual behavior catches Arata's attention. Once the game begins, Oka wins several rounds in a row, unaware that Arata is distracted. When Oka gets excited from winning, she tends to make a lot of small movements, and all the physical contact causes Arata's mental chaos. Once Arata regains his focus, Oka starts losing repeatedly in the game. Not following sportsmanship, she decides to attack Arata in real life when she can't beat him in the game. This directly leads to even more frequent physical contact between them. While struggling, Arata accidentally pushes Oka down. Time seems to freeze, and both of them are stunned. Oka suddenly remarks that Arata has grown from a boy into a man. As she leaves, her cheeks are noticeably flushed. Neither of them realizes that Kotono is hiding in Arata's wardrobe. This unexpected situation sets off another unforeseen event. While Kotono and the sisters are watching a romance drama together, a confession scene comes up. They begin discussing topics related to love. Seiha takes a practical approach, considering many real-life factors. Oka hopes to meet the perfect husband like in a romantic manga. As for Minami, she only cares about if the couple falls for each other, and nothing else matters to her. These young girls each have their own understanding of love, and they keep talking late into the night. At this moment, Kotono suddenly calls out to her sisters and loudly confesses her feelings for Arata. She is certain that what she feels is not just a younger sister's affection for her brother, but the desire of a woman wanting to marry a man. Kotono senses that her sisters all have varying degrees of feelings for Arata, so to take advantage ahead, she bravely speaks her true thoughts. Everyone is stunned, as they never expected Kotono to be so bold. At this moment, Kanami is asking Arata how's everything going at home lately. Arata actually has a suspicion that Kanami must have had some special reason for revealing that they are not biologically related. He promises his adoptive father that as the eldest son of the family, he will definitely protect his family well. Kanami feels very relieved. Then he talks about Arata's love life, which makes Arata very shy, and he asks back about his adoptive father's own romance. Kanami rarely talks about his wife Chihiro. Since she passed away, only one photo of her is left at home. Kanami's impression of her can be summed up in 3 words: beautiful, young, and warm. Here, a story from Chihiro's childhood is revealed. She wrote a letter asking about the well-being of her brothers and sisters. This part carries limited information, so let's have a guess on what the author is trying to imply. The following story focuses on Minami, who is preparing for an important upcoming tennis match. Minami often gets distracted, constantly thinking about the night Kotono ran back to her room. Besides Kotono, Hinata also brings trouble to Minami. She is Minami's senior and a veteran member of the tennis team. Hinata has great tennis skills, and she has always held the position of the team's #1 ace, until Minami, a genius, appeared and changed everything. Minami has the ability to compete for an Olympic gold medal, bringing countless honors to the school's tennis team. Therefore, Minami occupies the women's singles spots in all tennis competitions, and the sports student scholarship is hers as well. Hinata was originally recommended by her teacher to enter university with a scholarship and might have had the chance to become a professional tennis player. Now that Minami's brilliance has overshadowed hers, Hinata can only accept her parents' arrangements and give up university after graduating from high school to start looking for a job. In reality, many high school students enter society directly after graduation. They need to earn money to support their families. In the process, the talents of some are buried and go unnoticed. Therefore, Minami always feels like she took away her senior's opportunity. Yet, since they have a good relationship, she feels both guilty and determined to win a trophy for Hinata. Besides, Minami has a secret. She is actually injured and feels pain every time she trains and competes. The family's housekeeper accidentally discovers Minami's bandaged injury and tells Arata about it. It must be admitted that sometimes this boy does show the responsibility of an eldest son. Arata respects Minami's decision to compete, but he reminds his sister to go to the hospital for a thorough examination. Before that, Arata first checks Minami's injured ankle himself. As a way of thanks, Minami also helps her brother stretch his ligaments. During this process, the physical contact between the siblings makes Arata very shy. Fortunately, Minami is very outgoing and doesn't think of anything inappropriate. The troubles is that Kotono notices Arata and Minami have been getting closer lately, and she worries that she has gained another rival in love. Soon, an even bigger problem arises. On the day of Minami's tennis final, Arata wakes up very early. At first, everything seems normal. Banri wears skimpy dresses and teases Arata as usual, making her brother feel nervous early in the morning. This usual atmosphere continues for 3 minutes until someone notices that Minami is missing. They ask everyone in the house, but no one has seen her. The important point is that Minami's tennis shoes are still at home. Minami comes home with a bunch of snacks, explaining that as a cheerleader, she doesn't need to be at the match too early. Arata is worried about her, and after questioning her, his suspicions are confirmed. Minami's injury has been discovered, and the tennis coach has benched her. In front of her brother, Minami acts cheerful, as if being sidelined doesn't bother her at all. Arata suspects she's just putting on a brave face, a theory confirmed when he talks to Shion. Shion happened to see Minami crying earlier that morning, clearly heartbroken about not being able to play. Knowing how much Minami wants to win this match for Hinata, Arata decides to help her get back in the game. They hit a traffic jam on the way, so Arata switches gears. He grabs a bike and pedals Minami to the venue. Arata gets on his knees and begs the tennis coach, explaining his sister's situation. Minami finally gets her chance to play, but the pressure is immense. Not only is she playing injured, but the match is already down to the final game. If she loses this game, her dream of giving Hinata a victorious farewell will be shattered. The combination of physical and mental stress takes its toll, and Minami doesn't play her best. Her final, crucial shot is called out, and she loses the match. It's a heartbreaking loss. After the match, Minami apologizes to Hinata, but no one blames her. Minami seems as cheerful as ever, but only Arata knows she's faking it again. He pulls her into a hug. At that moment, Minami can't hold it in any longer and breaks down crying. That evening, Minami finds herself thinking about Arata while she's in the shower. With so much happening recently, his support has helped pull her out of her slump. The bad news? It seems Minami, like her other sisters, is starting to develop special feelings for her brother that go beyond family. With Minami's crisis resolved for now, it's time to deal with Kotono's problem. As Kotono is getting ready for bed, Oka drops by, and their chat reveals some key information. Kotono's sudden declaration of love for Arata wasn't entirely genuine. She had noticed that everyone else seemed to have a crush on him and wanted to be the first to stake her claim. Oka tells Kotono that their feelings for Arata are just familial love and urges her to seriously think about her own feelings and not make a rash decision. But as Oka leaves Kotono's room, she's filled with conflicting emotions. She lied. In truth, Oka can't figure out her own feelings for Arata either. A few days later, Banri shows up one night asking for Arata's help. She left something at school and needs to go back and get it. The eldest sister is terrified of the dark and ghosts and always needs someone with her on late-night walks. Banri clings to Arata's arm nearly the whole time, and the sensation makes him incredibly shy. Just then, a school security guard walks by on patrol. Arata quickly covers Banri's mouth and pulls her into a hiding spot. They're pressed together in an awkward position, making the atmosphere even more charged. Banri is a mature woman, and Arata starts to feel a strange attraction toward her. But what happens next shifts Arata's focus. Despite her timid nature, Banri chose to study nursing. When she was a child, she visited her adoptive mother, Chihiro, in the hospital. Banri was devastated by Chihiro's illness, but a kind nurse helped her through it. That was the moment Banri decided she would become a nurse, too, to bring comfort to patients and their families. Of all the sisters, Banri seems to be the one to worry about the least. Oka, on the other hand, is a magnet for trouble. Lately, she's been down, and even performed poorly on her exams. Seemingly to unwind, Oka decides to go to Mount Fuji for the weekend. Oka is soaking alone in a hot spring on the snowy mountain, completely unaware of the danger closing in. Days pass, and Oka still hasn't returned. It's as if she's vanished. Thankfully, after the last time she got lost, they installed a location-sharing app on her phone. Worried sick, Arata decides to take an overnight bus to Mount Fuji that very evening. When Oka sees Arata, she's startled, but also feels a mix of exasperation and gratitude. The inn is fully booked, so the two of them have to squeeze into a single room. While Oka is changing, Arata can barely breathe. In the cramped room, he struggles to keep his mind from wandering to inappropriate places. Just then, Oka brings up an old story. Their adoptive parents met on Mount Fuji. Chihiro had gotten into an accident, and their adoptive father appeared like a knight to save her. Oka isn't just making small talk. It seems she's hoping to meet her own knight on Mount Fuji, just like Chihiro did. At dawn, Arata wakes up to find Oka gone. The weather is terrible, with a thick fog drastically reducing visibility. Arata is extremely worried, and for good reason. Right now, Oka is lost and stranded in the mountains after a fall. Just as Oka is about to lose all hope, her knight, Arata, finally appears. At first, Oka tried to act tough, but with her foot injury, she could barely walk. So, in the end, Arata had to carry her on his back as they started down the mountain. They talked a lot on the way down. Oka mentioned a legend she'd heard, that if you bring a keepsake of a lost loved one to Mount Fuji, you can see them again. She had so much she wanted to tell her late adoptive mother, but sadly, she knew the legend was just a myth. Oka admitted she used to tell her adoptive father, Kanami, everything. She really adored him. But ever since she found out they weren't related by blood, things had felt strange. The whole family dynamic shifted, and she couldn't bring herself to open up to him anymore. Arata did his best to reassure her, telling her that blood ties don't matter. He'd always be there to listen. His coming all this way to save her proved it. They would be family for life. Oka didn't say a word. She was incredibly moved, just too shy to say what she was really feeling. Back at the lodge, they quickly bandaged her wound before heading down the rest of the way. Banri and the others were already waiting at the base of the mountain. They'd been worried sick about Oka ever since her recent breakup, so they were massively relieved. On the drive home, Arata, completely exhausted, sat in the back and ended up falling asleep on Oka's shoulder. This made Oka's face turn beet red, her heart pounding faster than a race car. It wasn't until they got home that she realized what was wrong. Urata wasn't just tired. He had a raging fever and was nearly unconscious. He'd gotten completely soaked in the rain on Mount Fuji while saving her, and now he was seriously ill. Fortunately, Urata's sacrifice was worth it. Oka finally managed to overcome her inner turmoil, and thanks to him, she was able to mend her strained relationship with their father, Kanami, restoring the closeness they once had. The bad news was, a full day later, Urata was still sick. Kotono and Minami were practically fighting over who got to bring him his meals. Banri, worried that Kotono might try something inappropriate while Urata was delirious, decided to send Minami instead. But the one they really should have been worried about was Oka. After getting home, she took a bath, and then went to Urata's room all by herself. Still not brave enough to express her feelings directly, she saw an opportunity while he was unconscious. Then, in a shocking move, Oka leaned in and gave him a kiss. As she left the room, she had no idea that Urata had been awake the entire time. Urata's mood was incredibly complicated in the following days. He and his family went to his adoptive father's vacation villa to escape the summer heat. Banri teased Urata about having to sleep in the same room as his sisters. This made Urata even more flustered, especially when he saw Oka's lips, which always gave him strange ideas. While Urata was showering, Shion suddenly walked into the bathroom. Fortunately, his younger brother wasn't there to confess his feelings. Otherwise, Urata would have had no idea how to deal with his emotions. It was Shion's idea to come here to escape the heat. He found that his household registration was in this city and wanted to meet his biological parents. However, it turned out that the area was desolate, and no one lived nearby anymore. Urata had just finished comforting Shion, helping his brother feel less dejected. Soon, Urata himself encountered a problem. He noticed his sisters looking at him strangely. First, Oka kept coming to Urata, deliberately asking him many questions about relationships. When she learned that Urata no longer had feelings for Yokoyama, Oka seemed very happy. While showering, her mind was filled with taboo thoughts about siblings marrying. Immediately after, Minami invited Urata to visit a park filled with roses, a place typically frequented by couples. Minami shyly asked her brother about his ideal type of lover, carefully remembering Urata's description. Suddenly, Minami told Urata that she already had someone she liked. This girl was usually very brave, but a bit timid when it came to love, and ultimately didn't say that Urata was the one she liked. Alright, a major challenge is coming up. The first part of the summer retreat plan is swimming in the mountains, which is incredibly difficult for Urata. So much has happened recently that he can't even calmly be around his sisters anymore. And of course, everyone is wearing swimsuits, which are quite revealing. He just shifted his gaze from Oka when Minami invited him to jump in together. Minami holds her brother's hand, her feelings incredibly complex. Urata doesn't notice Minami's unusual behavior. His attention is completely on Seiha. This girl is brilliant at studying but completely clueless in daily life. Seiha just lost her underwear. Urata is both shy and nervous. He's worried Seiha might have a wardrobe malfunction, so he proactively helps her retrieve her older sister's underwear. Next up is Banri, the eldest sister. When she invites Urata to swim, she actively climbs onto his back. This directly leads to a lot more intimate contact between them. Urata is practically at his breaking point. He's at an age where his hormones are surging, making it hard to resist such temptation. Because Urata is so distracted, he doesn't hear Banri's very quiet confession. Finally, it's Kotono's turn. She has to go a long way to buy something. Urata, worried about his sister, accompanies her along the mountain path. Urata remembers Kotono's previous confession, and his heart races. Luckily, Kotono doesn't make any unusual moves. She's inspired by Urata's guidance and decides to re-evaluate her relationships with her family members. That night, Urata thinks he can finally get some rest. But then, something unexpected happens again. He overhears Kotono, Minami, and Oka chatting. These three sisters confess their true feelings. They all actually like Urata. Minami even suggests that the sisters compete fairly. Well, congratulations. You've just finished another anime recap on my channel. Feel free to rate it in the comment section. I can't believe this anime ultimately turned into a harem. Except for Seiha, who hasn't explicitly stated her feelings. The other sisters have all shown varying degrees of affection for Urata. Will this boy choose one of them to be his wife, or will he bring all of them into his harem? Let's look forward to the story in the next season. Also, my channel has full recaps of many classic anime, and I hope they can help you pass the time when you're bored.